Merry Christmas, you wonderful old building and loan. We're talking It's a Wonderful Life. Hit it. It was the 1980s. 3M began sales of Post-it notes. Australia had a mini gold rush. AC/DC was back in black, and Clarence helped George Bailey examine his impact on the world. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me is a very special guest. You'll know her as one of the hosts of the Way Tubular 12 Days pod, Cara Zelaya. Cara, how's it going?
Hi, how are you? It's going great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming on. I'm really excited about this one. And it's a little bit of a cheat because It's a Wonderful Life is not exactly from the 80s, but there is a workaround, which we'll get to in a bit.
Oh, really? I'm excited to find out. You're going to teach me something.
Well, I'm sure it's not much, but but how's life been treating you?
Oh, it's great. You know, we're in the festive season now. Like Halloween's over. That's the way I'd see it. There's no denying it. I live in Virginia, so it's a little warm today. It was like 77, but it's all right. I'm hanging in there.
I feel you because I'm in Texas, and
oh wow,
same thing. It was the 70s here. Yeah, we normally have like green Christmases, so.
Oh yeah, I'm originally from Florida, so for me it's fine. But my Dan from 12 Days Pod, my boyfriend, was living in Duluth, Minnesota for the last like 3 years, where it is like he gets in like the negative 30s. So
oh my gosh, I can't even imagine that. You know, and I'm from actually South Texas originally, so like anything like under 60 is like freezing, you know?
Yeah. I'm from Miami, so I get it.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. But you're right. Yeah, we're right in the middle of the holiday season. So yeah, I can't wait. I'm ready for Christmas.
Yeah, I'm ready for It's a Wonderful Life too. I'm ready to celebrate. Get that good feeling.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Let's get into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your history or like what's your general feelings on It's a Wonderful Life?
So I saw It's a Wonderful Life, not like super growing up, I guess in like my early 20s. I went to a really good, very intense prep school for high school. And I was introduced to Frank Capra films by my high school history teacher who made us watch Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which is another classic Jimmy Stewart. Mm-hmm. And I actually recently rewatched it and it holds up amazingly well.
It really does, yeah.
So I then like became obsessed with Jimmy Stewart and I watched It's a Wonderful Life and it became probably my like seminal Christmas movie. And then I haven't seen it for a while. And when we started making 12 Days Pod, Dan had never seen it. And I was like, how have you not seen this? You're an all-American boy. So we sat down and watched it. And again, continues to hold up, continues to make me cry. I don't know. There's something about that movie that is so magical to me. And I was doing a little research before we were recording just now to see what I didn't like about It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Because it was tough for me to come. And then I found all this like It's a Wonderful Life hate. And I was like, oh no, this is too dark. I don't want to be here.
Well, it is one of those that there are some people, and they're not very many, but there are some that don't consider it an actual like Christmas movie.
Yeah. Dan said that too when he watched it. He's like, it's not really a Christmas movie. And I was like, yes, it
is. You're like, stop it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny and the reason it's actually associated more with Christmas rather than just the actual story is because of a typo in the copyright. So when the copyright was going to be renewed in 1974, there was a mistake. And so it was never renewed. And so stations literally, because they didn't have to pay anything for it, they would just show it. Local stations mom and pop stations, anything. And so in the 80s, it was literally on hundreds of local TV channels just because no one owned the copyright. And so it was one of those free things they could just show. And so because of that, it actually really became a Christmas movie and a classic.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
that's amazing. And I think there is some people have somewhere to land when it comes to it, the argument that it's not a Christmas movie. Like when I did the research for it, I found out that it was filmed during a heat wave.
yes,
But for me, that also doesn't hold up because like all of these Hallmark movies are filmed in like June.
June.
So
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly right. Yep.
but also it came out, I believe, in January, if I'm not mistaken. Like it was like after the Christmas holidays that it originally premiered.
Yeah, yeah, it was around there, and it's just one of those. I mean, I know they had to actually create their own snow because the what they were using as the fake snow wasn't quite working,
Yeah.
and so from there they actually came up with something so ingenious that now that's like the go-to for fake snow.
Oh, I had no
Yeah.
idea. That's good to know.
Yeah, before then it was all like cornflakes and things like that that they would just kind of paint white, and so they'd get the natural crunching sound as well. But it's like a
Oh,
soap
wow.
kind of based thing. I don't know how. I mean,
Oh,
it's
interesting.
I'm have a degree in physics, but I didn't look into this, so I can't tell you exactly how. It's but
Dan's a chemical engineer, so I'll ask
so
him
he'll
when we
probably he's
he'll
like, oh
probably
yeah,
figure
that's
it
easy.
out.
It's like of course I know how they did that. But yeah, it's actually and when you think about it, it was groundbreaking in a lot of ways. But it's funny because it got a lot of, or I should say, it didn't get a lot of play back when it came out. It was kind
Hmm.
of considered a flop.
Hmm.
And it's a shame that it was considered a flop because
Yeah.
I mean, now it's on so much that like countless shows have copied the premise and for their own Christmas specials, and there have been other movies that kind of copy the premise, and so it's like a staple of
Yeah.
Christmas, I think, at this point.
One of the things that we learned, because we did an episode on It's a Wonderful Life as well. And one of the things that we learned is that I'm forgetting the name of the angel that comes down and talks to Jimmy Stewart's character.
Clarence.
Clarence.
Yes.
There's a sequel that was made in the early 90s. So maybe we can plug that as the 80s angle as well.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. I stretched the 80s till 93.
That's perfect. Exactly. And and it was like it's basically based around Clarence and how he has, I don't know, some other mission. We didn't dig that deep into it, but the guy who plays Clarence, and this might be like, I'm aging myself and being fairly young, is the same guy who plays the dad in the Lizzie McGuire TV show from like the 2000s in Disney Channel.
I gotcha. Yeah.
So we were
Okay.
like, who is this guy? And we're like, oh my God, it's Lizzie McGuire's dad.
Oh man, I got to confess that was definitely after my time. So now I'm aging myself the other way. But
You said the 80s went to 93. I was born in 1990, so I'm an 80s kid.
there you
Now
go. Hey,
everyone hates me. Now everyone hates me.
no, 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 no. You're good. Yeah. But yeah, the actress that played Zuzu,
Mhm.
Carolyn Grimes, she actually never saw the movie until 1980 herself.
Wow.
Can you? I mean, that's just crazy to me. You like you got paid to act in this. You got to meet like one of
Yeah.
the biggest named actors
Yeah.
like at the time, and you never actually watched what you did. I mean,
Oh my goodness.
that's
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 wild.
amazing. Yeah, but
It was a
anyway,
time before on demand.
that's true. Yeah, yeah. This is back when you actually had to like stick a VHS in the recorder.
I'd love to
um,
show a VHS to a like Gen Zer and be like, look at this thing that we had to do.
their head might explode, I think.
Truly.
But I guess we can go ahead and just hop right into it.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you want to nutshell it, because I like to nutshell these things before we actually go detailed, but it's a man who's desperate because of his circumstances, wants to commit suicide, and an angel actually tries to help him out and see that that's not the right thing to do.
Right.
That's the nutshell version, but it's way deeper than that.
So many subplots.
Yeah, there are. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so George Bailey is played by Jimmy Stewart. He's the main character here, and it's Christmas Eve in 1945 in a little town called Bedford Falls, which is, I guess, kind of upstate New York-ish.
Yeah, vaguely New York.
Yeah, exactly. And I've never been that area, so I really can't say. I'll just take their word for it. But I'm sure living in Virginia, I'm sure it's a lot
Yeah,
more
yeah.
familiar to you.
I lived in New York City, so for 4 years. So
Oh, okay.
whenever anyone talks about like upstate New York and New York City, they mean any part that's not New York City.
No, I
Like
got you. Yeah. Okay.
so it could be 10 minutes north of New York City. We're like, yeah, upstate New York. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So it's upstate New York.
yeah.
And yeah, he's thinking about committing suicide because he's so desperate, and we'll find out why later on. This It's kind of really strange because the whole Christmas part really just bookends the entire story, and
Yeah.
then most of it is done through flashbacks, which is
Hmm.
another really odd thing that you don't normally see. Like the flashback, I mean, the only other movie that I can think of that has a flashback that lasts that long is like Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van
Yeah.
Damme. So
Yeah. There aren't that many that long flashbacks in film.
yeah, it's definitely something different, but it works. I mean, they really get you to feel for the character, empathize with him, so that by the time we cut back to him and his contemplation, we I mean, we're just there with him, and we really feel his circumstances and his desperation. And
Yeah.
I don't even know what else to say. It's just it touches you so much because it's like, no,
Yeah.
George, don't. You have your children and your wife, and
It is also like kind of a very quintessential American dream story. And,
Mhm.
like I think right now we're all just like clinging to any joy and like positivity. It's with such a
Yes.
hard year that we've all been experiencing.
Mhm.
And so I was watching it and I was rewatching it this year, and I was so taken by this idea of like how popular this movie is when all of its messaging is so much like look out for your neighbor, help out your community. Like he has a couple of opportunities where he can make a lot of money and he just kind of like narrowly misses it kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yes.
And, he wants to go see the world basically. And like he thinks that his dreams have never come true, and that I'll get to this and when we talk about our least favorite scenes, but he like swears that he'll never get married at one point, and then
Yeah,
like ends up in this beautiful marriage with Donna Reed, who
I
is
know.
so
I know.
gorgeous.
Lucky dude. Yep, yep.
I'm like, Jimmy, calm down. Like your life is amazing. So it's really it's such a good story that it holds up so well, because
Mhm.
so much of what we're learning right now, especially during this pandemic, is that it's like, oh wow, all we really have is like our families
Yeah.
and like our immediate community, our very immediate community,
Yes, yeah.
how, and how we treat each other, and that
Mhm.
determines our lives in so many ways. So yeah, I mean, like that's the thing about this movie, is that it really is just like this man, this family, this community's story.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also this like emotional. I mean, it still makes me cry. I've seen it like a dozen times, and
Yeah.
every time I cry. Um, but it also has become, I think, such a thing in pop culture too, where it's like the George, don't do it. Like I think this movie sparked so many kind of subplots in that, or at least it's been memed or made fun of. Like I think The Simpsons did a thing, or like
Yeah. I love The Simpsons. So
yeah, same.
but yeah, that's exactly right. It's poignant, and it cuts to the heart of it, I think.
Yeah,
And this year of all the years,
yeah,
I've lived 40 years now, and this is definitely the weirdest. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Same
you're
boat.
right. I'm so glad that I'm here with my family and we're all
Yeah.
safe and good now. But yeah, so he's thinking of doing that, and his wife and his family are praying hard for him, and their prayers are heard by some angels. And so Joseph, I guess, is like the head angel in charge, is talking to Clarence Oddbody, who's just an angel second class, which I thought was kind of funny. And so he says, well, this man wants to throw away essentially the greatest gift, which is life, and love and all that. And he says, so it's our job to help him, but he doesn't understand. Clarence doesn't understand why, and so they kind of show him his life. And so cut to George growing up,
Yeah.
And yeah, we hear a lot of those, I can't wait to leave this town and see the world, and I'm going to design buildings and all sorts of things like that. And
Yeah.
but it's a cool little thing where like Donna Reed's character as a little girl also already has like a huge crush on George.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, yeah, as a little boy, I had little crushes on little girls, but I never thought I'd like marry them or
Marry them.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, he saves his brother from drowning because his brother like falls into some ice, and so he saves him. But at the same time, he loses his hearing in one of his ears, and so there's a really cool bit where he's like bending over doing something, and she just kind of whispers into his bad ear, I'm gonna love you till the day I die or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very sweet.
It really is,
But
yeah.
also kind of mean. I love it.
Because he never knows.
Yeah, he never knows.
Oh man. But yeah, so he saves his brother. He works for the local pharmacist or
Mhm.
druggist. I don't know what they're called at the time. And he also prevents the pharmacist from actually putting in the wrong medicine and killing a
Yeah.
patient. And so
Poisoning someone, yeah.
poisoning someone because the pharmacist just received word that his son had perished in was it the war, I think?
Yeah, it was the war,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so it was just, oh man, again, it's so heavy.
Yeah.
But he doesn't deliver the medicine to the lady because he knows it's the wrong pill.
Yeah.
And so he spares the pharmacist the embarrassment, and so he just doesn't deliver it. The pharmacist gets a call, and I know I'm going to go into detail in some of these things, not everything, but this is
Yeah.
one that I think is really, really important because it shows already his character and
Mhm.
how he kind of wants to protect people and do the right thing at the same time. And so it's
Yeah.
just, the pharmacist starts to beat him because back then I guess that's what you did.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah, a
Yeah.
little problematic, but anyway, so he's like, my bad ear, and so he tells him like, hey, I knew it wasn't the right one, and so the pharmacist looks at it and checks it out, and sure enough, it would have poisoned
Yeah.
the lady, and so he's turns his life around essentially from that,
Yeah.
and so already at age 12, he's helping people, which is
Also, a sign of the times that
well.
this man got this letter that, his child died in the war and he just kept working.
Well, yeah, yeah,
Like,
you're right. Nowadays, yeah, dude.
it's like, I'm going to take off for a little bit. But yeah, it does show this little boy's amazing character, to stand up to his employer, an adult,
Hmm.
and also just like a gut feeling too, because he, to be able to piece that together shows a level of emotional maturity that like,
Yeah,
is shocking.
I don't think I would have been able to at that
No,
time.
no.
No, for sure. So we see him growing up. He wants to go, like you said, see the world. He's going to go to college. But that's when he's introduced to Mary. I guess reintroduced, I suppose, and who's always had a crush on him, and it's just at this point, this is when his father has a stroke, or was it a stroke or a heart attack? I don't recall which
I
one,
don't
but
remember which one it was either, but something that basically is
right,
no good.
exactly, and unfortunately, he passes away, and so now, he's handling his father's affairs. He's already postponed college a little bit, and so now he wants to go, but the only way that they'll keep the building and loan, which is the business that his dad ran, open, is if George actually takes over. And or again, we kind of have this big interplay because he doesn't want to do it, but at the same time he knows that if he doesn't, then Mr. Potter, who's like the town financier,
Town bad guy,
I
town.
suppose, yeah, essentially, yeah, developer. I don't know what he is, but he if he doesn't, he's going to take over, and a lot of people are going to be left with shoddy homes that they can't,
Yeah.
they're terribly built, they're very low quality, they're expensive at the same time, and so he knows if he doesn't do it, people are going to be in trouble. So he stays and he sends his brother essentially to college.
College. Yeah.
Which again, it's like, oh, right in the feels. As an older brother, that got me.
Yeah, I'm an older sister. I'm a middle child, but I'm an older sister as well,
Yeah.
in a sense. And it is so heart-wrenching. And then also, I think, the idea of having to take on your parents' like legacy
Legacy, yeah.
prematurely. And then also, like, one of the things about this something and loan, I think it's called, building and loan.
Building and loan,
The
yeah.
building and loan is that it is basically the only way that people in his neighborhood have been able to like keep their homes and start businesses basically
Hmm.
with no credit other than the fact that they are hardworking. And I don't know if you'll get into this, but one of the families who gets a loan is Martini, I think, the
Oh, the martinis,
Martinis.
yeah.
Yeah. And they open up a bar called Martini, I believe, and they
Hmm.
have a house. And it's clearly like an Italian American family, which in that time was like the immigrant family kind of
Right.
story.
Hmm.
And it's so poignant, and it's really amazing the levels that this movie gets into in the 2 hours that it runs. When we watched it, Dan was like, there's 8 different lives in this movie. And I'm like, I know, it's beautiful. And he's like, it's not a Christmas movie.
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know, he's wrong.
but but yeah, you're right. And it shows him that he doesn't discriminate. He's
Yeah.
very, just loving. If someone needs help, he's going to help them.
Mhm.
And that's, I mean, he's building, and this is where we get to the greatest gift. He's and the whole message of the movie at the end that they talk about on Christmas Eve, but he's just building these friends and family, and
Right.
it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so he sends his brother to college. He's going to run the business and loan for a while till his brother graduates, and then his brother will take over so he can go to college.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, his brother comes back married, and he's got like a great job offer from his father-in-law, his new wife's
Yeah.
dad. And he doesn't want his brother to not take it because it's such a great offer. And so
Right.
again, he doesn't, I mean, he's down, he's sad,
Yeah.
but he doesn't take it. He tells Harry to go.
Yeah.
And it's, oh man, it's getting me just thinking about it. It's one of those, I never get this choked up on talking
Yeah.
about this, but this one really got me.
Yeah.
But
It's so many layers of just like the familial aspect of it. Also, his mom is just like alive through all of this too. Like
right.
she's in the background. And also Mary's part, who he is dating and then eventually marries,
Hmm.
she always seems to be very content to be in this town, right? She seems
Yeah.
very content with this life. And
Hmm.
it's interesting that when that shift doesn't come to him until he has that moment of crisis,
Right.
because she's just like, she's thriving, she's perfectly happy with her house, which is a whole other plot point. There's
Yes.
so many. But she's happy. She doesn't want a rich husband. She has the opportunity to marry rich
She
at one
does,
point,
yeah.
and then
Hmm.
she's not interested in that. um and it's so interesting because part of me is like sentimental and is like, of course I understand giving your dreams up, and then the other part of me is like, George, everyone around you understands how special you are. Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh man, I love when they're at the dance, when
yes.
he takes her to the dance, and and then they're
Yeah.
dancing, and alfalfa,
Yeah.
um, or he presses a button, and then the dance floor like starts to open to reveal the
Yeah.
actual swimming pool underneath,
Yeah.
and they're just like, everyone's just backing away. He's like, wow, we must be great. Everyone's watching us, and they fall in. Oh, it's classic.
It's so sweet.
It is, but it's one of those classic moments, honestly, that's been replayed a lot, because after
Yeah.
that they're walking home. She's got the robe on. He's wearing just a football uniform because
Yeah.
their clothes are all wet. And that's when we get that classic line. Hey, what do you want, Mary? You want the moon?
Yeah.
I'll lasso you to the moon. And so that's just another. I mean, this film, I think, is like peppered with all these little like seminal moments of film
Yeah.
history that
Hmm.
you don't normally see in a film nowadays. I mean, you can take Elf is great. I love Elf, but it's not. It doesn't have like the same impact that It's a Wonderful Life has.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
Yeah, I'm watching Elf tonight. Actually,
Oh, okay. Oh,
I'm rewatching. I'm rewatching. I've seen
oh,
it
okay,
before,
okay.
but It's interesting because I came into this whole journey of watching Christmas movies and talking about them for a podcast, and I came in here very strong, being like, oh, I'm gonna really fall for the modern classics, right?
Hmm.
Because I am a big believer that we are in a really good age of cinema, and
Right.
although I've seen a lot of old movies, I'm a firm like believer of that. Like, there's a lot of trash, but that's just because there's a lot of movies now.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
There's amazing films being made, and it's what's interesting is what has really gotten me has been I saw Miracle on 34th Street for the
Ooh,
first time
it's a good
yesterday.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I rewatched this, and it was just this, like they are the classics for a reason, and standing on the shoulders of giants, right? All these like
Hmm.
great films that are still existing. And to the argument that It's a Wonderful Life is not a Christmas movie, which is nonsense. What it is, first and foremost, is an excellent movie. And that's what I think really makes it shine, right? And
Yes.
I'm all for watching excellent movies on Christmas. So
Yeah. Yeah. Take that, Anthony, from Tis a Podcast. Just
oh, we
kidding. Love you,
love
bro.
him. We love him.
Yeah, we do. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's a classic for a reason,
Yeah.
and maybe the reason is because it was shown a lot in the '80s, but but
Yeah.
at the same time, people really latched onto that trope because there is something very well made about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a Frank Capra movie. I mean,
Right.
you can't go
Right.
wrong with Frank Capra. Yes, they're
Exactly.
sentimental, but they always hit the mark, I think.
Yeah. And what's so wrong with being sentimental? We all
I,
need to cry more this year.
for real, yeah, in a good way, yeah.
In a good way. Yeah, for sure.
Oh man, but yeah, so he sends Harry to go work at his father-in-law's place. He's continues to run the building alone, but at this point, he's kind of just upset and frustrated, and so he goes to see Mary. And this is when we get that classic scene where they kiss for the first time. And this was like his first on-screen kiss since he had been fighting in the war, since he had been back. So it was
Jimmy
really
Stewart himself is an entire
awkward.
other podcast.
You're right. Yeah.
You just like pepper that in, which I knew, but like it's like, oh, after Jimmy came back from the war, he made It's a Wonderful Life.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
oh man, it
Yeah.
yeah, I mean I get it. I don't know if I would have been comfortable with a scene
Yeah.
like that. I don't even know if I would have wanted to make the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that when Frank Capra and him sat down and he was pitching the idea to him, he really wasn't selling it well at all.
Hmm.
And he was really kind of messing it up. And Jimmy Stewart said something like, "Hey, if you want me to play a man who tries to commit suicide and I have to save an angel from drowning to change my life, I'll do it. I'm in. When do we start?" And I was like, "Oh man, see, that's awesome. That's Jimmy Stewart."
Yeah. That's Jimmy Stewart. Yeah.
Oh man, Donna Reed. Yeah.
uh,
But yeah, so they get together, they get married, and they have $2,000 saved up that he'd been saving. It's going to be their honeymoon money. They're going to go see the world and go on their honeymoon. It's amazing.
oh yeah.
But this
Oh
is when the
gosh.
depression hits, and there's a run on the bank. And so because there's a run on the bank, there's a run on the building and loan as well. And so they end up, oh man, right after their wedding, they don't even get a chance to go on their honeymoon. They end up using that money to help people get some money so that they can have food. And
Yeah.
it's one of those that as a kid, I didn't understand how, he says like your money's in his house and his money's over there. And I didn't
Yeah.
understand what he meant, because it's all tied up as collateral and things like that to
Right.
help others. And so I didn't get it. But now, of course, seeing it as an adult, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those where, again, you're impressed by the way he uses his own money to kind of
Right.
help people out, and how he convinces the town, look, we have to care for each other. I know you want all your money, but please, what do you just what do you need to get through
This week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so good. He actually convinces. At the end, they have $2 left out of their whole 2,000,
Yeah.
and
God.
he forgets he's married. But I love it. He's like,
But what I
well,
love is that Mary is right next to him, being like, "How much do you need?" Like
yeah,
she is right there, you
and it's
know?
it's her idea.
Yeah,
That's the best part, and
yeah.
so it's not just, what they say, the behind every great man is a great
A great
woman.
woman. Yeah,
And really, if you think about it, it really is her in this moment. He's
yeah,
just trying to convince him not to take money out,
yeah,
and she's like, no, we got you covered. And
yeah.
so if it wasn't for her, I don't know what could have happened to the building and loan then.
Right.
It might really have gone under. So, I mean, a lot of credit has to go to Donna Reed and Mary in this case, especially.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Ugh.
but I love how she like slyly, because he doesn't know anything about it, like bought her dream house, and it was this old kind of decrepit house,
Yes.
and she loved the architecture. And on that first date when they fell in the water, and we're walking back, and we get the iconic lasso the moon line.
Yeah.
On that date, they passed by that house, and I guess he had a thing with his friends where if you have a rock and you like throw it and break a window and make a wish, your wish will come true.
Right.
And she does it, and she really did it on her first try, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, Donna
uh,
Reed actually threw that because apparently she was like on a softball team growing up or something like that.
yeah.
Like,
That's right, yeah. Well, I
yeah.
know she made $50 off of Lionel Barrymore for in this
Oh,
movie.
really?
Yeah, so it was like because she grew up on a farm,
Mm.
and I guess there was like a cow or something on set one day, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I used to milk cows," and he bet her like $50 that she could not milk the cow, and she said it was the easiest $50 she ever made in her life.
And this was $50 back in the like 40s,
Back in
50s,
the,
you know?
that's right, yeah. So that's like talk about awesome.
Yeah, that's Donna Reed.
But yeah, so she slyly bought that house, and so he goes, and she kind of put like her and the cab driver and I think the police officer Bert and Ernie,
Yeah.
which yeah, it's just a coincidence. They didn't
Yes.
really name them Bert and Ernie guys, but they put up like posters of like France and whatever, and
Yeah.
to make it seem like they're on their honeymoon. And so they go home, and it's it's like a
It's so
decrepit.
sweet
It
though.
is. It really is. It's a terrible house,
Oh, it's so
but you
bad.
can see like the bones are good. I guess I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man, you think about it. It's like, oh
Oh
gosh.
God. It really is like watching the two best people that have ever existed going through the worst time
Yeah.
and still managing to be in love and
Hmm.
still managing, and to Mary's credit, like I said earlier, she never flounders
Mm-mm.
or and I mean and George doesn't either until
Right.
his breaking point, right? And
Right. Right.
that's when it's and there's also this like subplot that when I rewatched, I never understood with Violet, where there's this neighbor or other
Oh
girl
yeah.
who is like always like quasi flirting with George, but it never goes anywhere.
Yeah.
And he never seems particularly interested. And at some point, she like goes to the building alone, asking George for money so she could leave her husband, who is like I don't know if abusive or bad in some type of way. And
Hmm.
he gives her the money. And everyone is like, oh, this is going to be some scandal. And that's, I think, one of the threads of the movie that never turns into anything. No one ever judges
Yeah.
George.
Yeah.
Like,
It's definitely unresolved. Yeah.
yeah,
I think at this point he's helped so many people, they just see it as like, oh, he's helping someone,
yeah.
rather than like, oh, dude gave this chick some money. I don't know.
Right, exactly.
Like, George, what are you doing, man? You know, and really that's what it is. It's like we get a cool montage of, they go through the war, and he can't fight because of his bum ear.
Yeah,
And so they help in whatever ways they can. They help people like the Martinis, with their business. What's his name? Nick. They help Nick
yes,
as well. Like all these
yeah,
different people that they're helping get new houses. And I mean, it's we see him grow and help so
yeah,
many people that of course everyone's going to love him and
right.
help him out at the end when the worst is going to happen. But so the Bailey Park is built. That's like a new subdivision with affordable homes that are still good quality, and people can pay back whenever they can. which it's like, wow, you will not get that nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Uh, and Potter, old man Potter, who's I guess the rival, essentially, the business guy that we
right.
mentioned earlier. He even tries to hire George away
Yeah.
for
Oh
a
God,
large
yeah.
sum of money. It was like 20,000 or something, 25,000, something like that.
Yeah,
And I mean, in again, 1940. So
right.
that's
A
like,
ton of money.
yeah, yeah. Of course, he turns him down, and that's the famous scene that we see in Home Alone
Hmm.
that they're watching in French.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that.
The Christmas
No, no,
cinematic universe.
that's right.
That's one
Yeah,
through line.
I love, I love that. I'm gonna start using that.
Yeah.
Oh man! But then this is when the whole turning point. So after all that, Uncle Billy has $8,000 he needs to deposit. He is
Right.
confronted by Old Man Potter in the bank. Somehow, Uncle Billy accidentally forgets to deposit it and puts it in a newspaper, which he gives to Potter. So now Potter has George's money. He knows they can't pay any of their debts or anything now, and so he actually calls an accountant and the sheriff and everything on George. And George doesn't know what to do because at this point, without proof,
Right.
without that money, they're going to think he stole it, he's embezzling or something,
Right.
and he'll go to prison and never see his family. And so this is his breaking point. He doesn't know what to do. He knows he has like an insurance policy. He's going to think maybe if I jump, and this is Christmas Eve, and he thinks if he kills himself that maybe his family will at least be taken care of. But that's when,
Oof.
before he can jump, yeah, I know, right? It's like this
So
isn't
dark.
totally rad, yeah. It's a
When
bummer.
when I've shown this movie to friends or to Dan, my partner, this time around, he's like, wait, this is the one that centers all around like a suicide, right? And I'm like, I promise this is a happy movie. I
Yeah.
promise. Like,
Yeah, you're right. It's like it goes like real nice and happy. I mean, you get like
right.
his love story, and then it goes dark, where he has to
Yeah.
use his money, and then we see his family, and then the 8,000 grand,
Right.
now he's got to jump or something, and so it's just
Yeah.
it's really a roller coaster of a movie here, and I think
Right.
Frank Capra balanced it really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he's about to jump. Clarence, they kind of he's like, no, okay. He intervenes now. He's on his mission. Clarence is, the second class angel. He jumps in first, knowing, at this point, all about George's character. So George jumps in to save him. And, um, that's when they get to talking. Clarence is like, yeah, I'm an angel. And of course, he just thinks he's crazy. And as they're talking, he's like, maybe it would be better if I was never born. And so he's like, that's a great idea. And so he shows him what it would be like if he was never born.
Right.
And this is like one of those. I mean, I think there was even like a Family Matters episode with it. I mean, I know there's been a ton, but
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but I mean, I think it was like if Steve Urkel or something had never been born. I don't remember, but yeah. So Mary's like a spinster. Which, come on, Donna Reed, she would have married Sam Wainwright. That's
That's
ridiculous.
that's my point. I get that I will pick up when we talk about what I don't like about this movie, because in what universe?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the part that is I think out of everything in this whole movie, that's the most unbelievable part.
I'd sooner believe that the guardian angels would literally come down into a frozen lake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But his brother Harry is dead because George wasn't there to save him.
Right.
Um, Mr. Gower, the pharmacist, he ended up, his son passed away, and so he ended up giving the poison to that lady, and
Right.
she died, and so he was a disgrace. Now he's like an alcoholic. And Martini doesn't own the building anymore. The bar that he gave him the loan for it's Nick, and
Yeah.
everybody's just bitter. They live in what is it,
Potterville.
Potterville, yeah.
Yeah.
And seeing all this, and we get that great Jimmy Stewart eyes scene where it's just like his face, it's like a close-up on his face. He just kind of looks around and you see his crazed manic expression, and
Right.
I love that. It's one of my favorite bits.
Yeah.
It's just a good shot.
And him just like running around kicking the snow and like
Yeah, exactly.
at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
moment. Yeah. Yeah.
So he goes to his zoo. Oh, before then, the petals that his daughter Zuzu was pulling off a flower she had given him, and he had put it in his pocket, and they were gone. And
Right.
I mean, just everything. Bert and Ernie didn't know who he was, and Uncle Billy, I think, was committed.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah.
I mean, it's
So
like
it's
super dark.
extremely dark.
And so now he realizes that yes, Clarence really is an angel, and so he goes to the bridge and he just begs and prays that no, I want to be alive. He goes back to his house
Yeah.
and finds everybody, and everyone has chipped in. Oh, yeah, I'm getting
Oh
emotional now.
God.
I know, I know, I can't do it now. He's just so happy to see the family. He like picks up his
Yeah.
daughter and hugs his wife and everybody, and he apologizes profusely, and
Yeah.
and then everybody, like when they heard that he was in trouble, they all like pitched in their own money to
Yeah.
save him. And then of course Sam Wainwright, or was it Sam or was it Harry's company? I don't remember who, but
Yeah.
one of
I think
them
it was
was gonna.
Sam's. Yeah.
I think it was Sam. Yeah, he's been instructed to loan him like $8,000, and
Yeah.
so it was just like, oh man. And then we get the infamous, teacher says, when every time a bell rings an angel
Yes.
swings, and so he realizes that Clarence, his mission accomplished now, got his
Yeah.
wings, and he's like a first class angel, I guess, or something.
I love that these angels have classes.
I
It's
know.
very interesting.
Yeah, it's angelology is suspect, but it's still a great movie, and
Yeah, it's so good. So
yeah.
good. It really is the like ultimate if you want to feel everything movie. Um,
That's
I,
true.
I haven't rewatched until this year, which I watched it over the summer. I haven't rewatched it as like an adult who can drink. And I can imagine myself this year being like, okay, I'm gonna like really go into some eggnog and just cry.
Yeah, maybe spike it a little bit harder
Spike it
than
a little bit
normal.
more than normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah, it's definitely one of those that it's just like, oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a classic. It's been shown almost every single year on
Yeah.
multiple channels, because eventually in 96, I believe the copyright was actually restored.
It took them a while.
It did. Yeah, it did take them a while. I think it was in 1990 that they actually began the process again,
Wow.
realizing
Wow.
that they were losing out on so much money. And I believe the copyrights actually went back to the original author, because this was based on a short story called The Greatest Gift.
Yeah.
And of course, the entire concept of Clarence and him getting his wings, that was kind of added for the movie and a few other things. But yeah, so he actually now, or his family, probably his estate, has the copyright back,
Oh,
which is
that's awesome. That's really cool.
he needed it, I guess. so so I think at this point, really, I just got to ask, what would you say would be your happiest memory of this film?
I really think that for me, I've never had like a super seminal like, oh, I watched this with a aging grandparent or anything like
Right,
this,
right, yeah,
but I think my happiest thing about it is I mentioned earlier that the my teacher in high school who like really influenced like the course of my career, really my history teacher, I ended up going to the same graduate program as him. I
nice,
only applied to that program because I knew I wanted to go
right on,
to Fordham in New York City, actually,
cool,
and that's where I went to grad school. And he was so unbelievably formative to my values as like a person, as an American. I went to a Catholic school. I'm not particularly Catholic anymore, but like in my formation of like
right,
my
right,
values, you know. And so for me, even though what I watched in his class was Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, this is like an extension of that because it's like
yeah,
the Frank Capra. And so my happiest memory is that I think about these and I think about my teacher who
that's cool.
I wrote to this year actually because I was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that you were so unbelievably, of course, I wrote it this year when we're all feeling sentimental, right? And I'm like,
That's right, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, he's
If
probably teaching in a Zoom classroom and like he probably needs anything. So I'm going to shoot him a letter. You know?
if yeah, for sure, if Christmas Eve in It's a Wonderful Life were a year, it would be
Yeah.
2020. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I like finally got the courage, you know, I mean, I haven't seen him in God, 12, 13 years. And so wrote out this letter and you know, he responded back and like remembered me and all this stuff. We're now friends on Facebook. And so for me, my happiest memory is just this sort of like this person who was in my eyes, very Jimmy Stewart-esque,
Hmm.
very straight-laced, very good, like kind of by the book. It's not like he was a fun teacher or anything,
Right, right.
but he was so into instilling values and what it is. It was a history class, what it is to be an American and all this stuff. That this is like an extension of that.
Cool.
And in a year when we all kind of need a little reminder of
Yeah,
like, let's be good to each other and like love thy neighbor and
for
all of that
real.
stuff that sometimes we're like, oh, that's BS, it doesn't add up, and then a pandemic happens and we're like, oh, this is literally the only thing that actually
That's
matters.
true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, that's
um
awesome.
yeah, so that's my half happiest. It's just where I was who inspired me to watch this film originally as an extension of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
See, that's awesome. For me, it's nothing as amazing as that. It's mostly just this is my mom's favorite Christmas movie.
Oh,
And so it's one that she has to watch every year. And
oh.
same thing. My youngest brother also decided to take up that. It kind of got him in the same way. And so
Mhm.
whenever I think of this movie, I always think of them. And I
Oh,
remember one time after a particularly rough year, I remember going back home to visit for Christmas, and they wanted to put it on, and I just remember us all sitting around the couches, just watching "It's a Wonderful Life," eating.
yeah,
I think they even had M&M cookies in, so we were just eating M&M cookies, watching "It's a Wonderful Life," and
yeah.
it's just one of those that I associate it now with my mom and my family. So
Oh,
yeah,
it doesn't get better than that. And you're gonna have to tell me that M&M cookie recipe because we're gonna.
nice, yeah, for sure.
I'm all for about recreating other people's traditions. So.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'll definitely. But in fact, I believe. Let's see. This is yeah. So this week, well, the Eminem episode also drops,
Oh,
and so it's
good.
going to be posted online as well. So because
Awesome.
that was always part of our Christmases, the Eminem cookies and the hot
Uh-huh.
chocolate, the Mexican hot chocolate. So
Oh, amazing. I can't wait. I bet it's gonna be delicious.
I hope so. I think so. But anyway. But now we come to my favorite part of the show, which is a little bit I like to call "Gag Me with the Spoon." So this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the movie. Not necessarily something we hate, just something that we didn't like maybe as much as everything else. And
Right.
so, as a guest, or I'll put it up to the listeners, and they'll vote. Winner gets a totally rad Christmas sticker, unless I win, in which I get nothing. But I think you're safe. I don't think I've won yet. So, but yeah, as a guest, I'll let you go first. Just kind of set up the scene for us, and then we'll go.
Yeah. So both of my gag me with the spoons, one I won't do, one I will do, but I need to just illustrate this point that at one point when we flash back and we realize that Georgia doesn't exist and Donna Reed never got married, she comes out of this library, right? And we're supposed to believe that she is like mousy or unattractive. And she has never looked better. She invented hot librarian.
Yes, you
Like
did.
Donna Reed is the original. Like she comes out with the glasses and the thing, and I'm like, on what planet is this
Yeah.
woman unattractive? My other scene that I will do. God, I cannot do a Jimmy Stewart Mid Atlantic. I'm terrible at impressions. So, warning very much ahead. But basically, at one scene, George Bailey, uh, I don't fully understand why he has this kind of breakdown, but he like goes up to her and he like is shaking her. And I pulled up the script, so here we go. He
Okay.
goes, "Now you listen to me. I don't want any plastics and I don't want any ground floors and I don't want to get married ever to anyone. You understand? I want to do what I want to do." And then they make out.
That's it. Yeah.
That's my very bad Jimmy Stewart.
No, I liked it. That was good. I dug it. It's going to be better than mine. I'm also doing a Jimmy Stewart. This is when he's confronting Bert. At
Mhm.
I think Bert is a police officer and Ernie was a
Yes.
cab driver. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And he gets punched in the face, and his lip kind of after his I guess wish,
Uh-huh.
he's not bleeding anymore. And so then when his wish is granted again that he lives, it is. And so he sees Bert, and he says, excuse me here, but my mouth's bleeding, Bert. My mouth's bleeding. I can't do too.
You sound like Bert from Bert and Ernie, or you
That's
sound like
terrible.
Ernie.
Hey, Bert.
Hey, Bert. Are you doing Muppets Christmas? Did you do Muppets Christmas already?
Yes, in fact, it was being recorded tomorrow night.
Oh,
Yes, yeah.
perfect.
I can't
Then you're
wait.
all
Yeah.
set.
And so I will leave it to you listeners to vote. Apparently, my Jimmy Stewart is so bad I sound like Ernie. So I don't expect to win, but I'll put it up anyway and you guys can vote.
Honestly, it's slim pickings this time, team. Sorry about that.
Yeah, our bad. We tried.
We tried. We tried.
Oh, man. It does make me wonder because G.I. Joe, they taught us that knowing is half the battle. What
Right.
would you say is the other half?
I gotta be honest. I think this is the 90s kid in me. I don't fully get this prompt. Is it just an answer to that question
Yeah.
largely?
Whatever you want. You can
knowing is
focus
half
it on
the
this
other battle?
particular movie, or you can focus it on anything. I've had all sorts of answers. I'm trying
Knowing
to
is
figure
half
out
the
what the other
battle.
half the battle is.
How the half of the battle is?
Yeah.
Um, my immediate first thought was Donna Reed.
That's hey, I'd take that half of a battle if I was single.
This episode
yeah.
is just me being like, everyone has a crush on Donna Reed. I don't care.
It's true. Yeah. That's good. That's better than mine. So mine is if knowing is half the battle, the other half is making sure that there are no typos in your copyright renewal paperwork.
Clever. That's very good.
Yeah. Oh man, Cara, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. But what do you want to plug?
So I am the lesser half of 12 Days
No,
Pod.
no, not
We are the equal
true.
halves. I have a podcast with my boyfriend, my partner. We alternate the third thing with every episode. We're like my Airbnb co-seeker or whatever. Uh, and so we have a podcast as well. It's about the Christmas movies and the Christmas holidays. We started it in mid-October, running through Christmas. We're just a seasonal podcast, and basically we do a 25 to 26 minute, we try to keep it around there, wrap up of your seasonal favorites, and we put it on a scale of how many days of Christmas. And that's kind of our larger bit. We
It's a clever
talk
bit,
about,
by the way.
thank you. We talk about trivia. We talk about what we would change. We recently did an episode of The Holiday and we recast it with all actors of color. We gender swap things and like try to imagine what the stories would be that way. And we don't always agree. We have different backgrounds. My boyfriend is half Japanese, Midwestern, all-American boy. I'm a full Latina immigrant, where I'm like, I did not grow up believing in Santa Claus, but I'm fully integrated in American culture.
Nice.
So you kind of get this weird perspective from different point of views, and it's very quick, very quippy, and we definitely like dig into the fact that we're a couple a lot. We're like, no, it's quippy. We live together. So we're in love.
Yeah. Yes.
But we disagree a lot. So
It happens, you know. I mean,
and so we found that it's just been so much fun. And among our friends who have been listening, everyone has very strong opinions about Christmas movies, which has been amazing. Because again, in a year of strong opinions, I much rather disagree about Christmas movies than
anything else. I completely 100% agree. Yeah. But for sure, you got to check out their show. It's 12 Days Pod. It's fun. It's funny. And where can they find you?
They can find us on anchor.fm/12dayspod. Basically anywhere on the internet, we are 12dayspod. We are on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and I'm Cara Zelaya. I'm everywhere on the internet as well. CaraZelaya.
Right on. That was very cool, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Have a Merry Christmas.
Well, you too. And on that note, I'll end it by saying, remember, no man is a failure who has friends. So check us out on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're feeling as good as George after seeing his friends rally to his aid, leave us a review on iTunes. Not only does it help us reach more people, but you also get a free sticker. Now, don't forget to vote. Later, dudes.